I've been debating on whether or not to weigh in on this topic fully. I've made a few comments here and there. And it's because I spent 20 years keeping the secrets of some very wealthy and powerful men in my career as a high end escort. So, fortunately, I don't have very many names. And the names that I do have were some very good people. So, not every man who's wealthy and powerful is corrupt, but there's plenty of them. So, there's a part of me that's just like, okay, Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. It's pretty high level corruption. I get that. I read the email suggesting that Jeffrey Epstein might have some intel for Putin, and I went, "Whoa, that's some big shit, man." Um, yeah, and corrupt, and it's really a dire consequence to us as a democracy to have wealthy, powerful men playing these kind of games and jockeying for power with each other, and it's all at our expense. The idea that sexual providers and women and underage girls and boys are also the victim here is it lives in my body because I'm a sexual assault survivor um, and a child sexual assault survivor. So hearing about the sexual abuse of girls and women, it lands very personally in my physiology. At the same time, my escorting experience really showed me how prevalent this consumerist attitude can be with men who have wealth and power. Now, I was very fortunate. I was able to select only the clients that I wanted to work with. So nobody trafficked me. I was an adult who made my own choices and charted my own path. And there were a lot of people that I said no to. But I'm reminded of one evening where the date was arranged by a girlfriend of mine, and I had not personally vetted this client. I knew that there were going to be two clients there, and one of them was a friend of one of my really great clients. So I knew he was probably going to be a good guy. I didn't know just how terrible the other man was going to be. And I get to this 3,000 square foot hotel suite at the top of the Mark Hopkins. And the very first thing that I see is, of course, there's champagne on ice, which I was clean and sober at the time, so I wasn't going to have any of that. There was shrimp cocktail, and this boisterous, bloated human being who was obviously very insecure and just wanted to prove himself. He was already paying twice our fee to have me and another girl there. And he's showing us Polaroid pictures of these two blonde twins that he said were 16. And it's aboard a private jet on its way to South America. And he's bragging about how he had sex with both of these 16-year-old girls. I have no idea where they came from. I have no idea how they were trafficked, how egregious the situation might have been, or anything of the kind. But I do notice that they were definitely identical twins. So they were sisters. And this man really thought that this was a power move on his part. And he thought he was showing what a big guy he was because he'd gotten this huge hotel room at the top of the Mark Hopkins and paid double our price. And this was all for a friend's birthday party. And that was the nice guy. He was celebrating his birthday. He frankly didn't want to be there because he was in love with his wife. And so the other guy, total asshole. he thought because he was paying that he could do whatever he wanted. And I was an adult woman who was experienced, so I very quickly let him know absolutely not. He was shocked and horrified to think that when he paid for somebody's companionship, he couldn't control them and he couldn't dictate the terms of the encounter. So obviously he was used to that. I, of course, never saw this person again. And people who live like this don't usually give you their real names. Later on in my career, I had a very select clientele, and I not only knew all their names, I knew where they worked, and who their wives were and who their family was, because that was my insurance policy. But at the time, I knew nothing about this guy except he was a total creep. And I also saw, wow, this is so prevalent. And over time, from other stories that I heard from other people that I was not seeing as an escort, I came to realize this happens a lot. So, am I shocked that so many men flocked to Epstein's island or rode his jet or partied with him? I'm not the least bit shocked. Nauseated, sickened, yeah. But actually, what comes up for me as a survivor of child sexual abuse and a rape survivor is good. Finally, people could see this all too prevalent underbelly of our political and economic structure. Because this man that I saw wasn't a politician at all, just somebody who had a lot of money and was throwing it around to make himself feel big and hurting people in the process. And that happens so much. The hypocrisy, the secrecy, it's really corrupt. And I posted something in the chat where I was just like, how do we actually solve this? Because sure, we can find out who all the people were that were associated with Epstein. That's not going to solve it. That's not going to stop it. It's going on right now in other places, in other circles. And I know that to be a fact. Not because I have any names or locations or anything of the kind, just because 20 years of experience in the sex industry. This stuff is real. It really does happen. And yeah, I'm just glad we're talking about it. I really am. You know, when I was working as an escort, because of the laws that we have against escorting services, it was very dangerous for me to talk about those things. To try to out anybody would have been dangerous. I'm just glad I didn't know this guy's name, because that would have been really hard to keep that private. But yeah, it's not a pretty side of our patriarchal structure. And I thought maybe, for years, I thought if we could just dismantle patriarchy, that would solve it. But you know what I'm really coming to the conclusion is it's the money. And it really doesn't matter who the gender of the person is. Money is the problem. And I love money, obviously. I don't know exactly how we solve this. I know the part that I want to do is to create less shame, to bring these conversations out in the open. All the conversations about sex. That's something I've been on a mission for a long time to try to bring it out of the closet. And that's why I was on major television networks for 20 years, outing myself as an escort, so that I could try to give people a window into this other world. I mostly talked about the great clients that I had, because I didn't want people to think that these are all jerks. They're not. There are plenty of beautiful, wonderful people who pay for sex. And then there's some really dark people. Yeah. So if you have some ideas about how we can stop the corruption that happens when primarily men get wealthy and powerful? I'd love to hear it.